I did, and it is. I show 9:30.
All right, good morning. We will call the meeting to order for our Western Municipal Water District regular board meeting, August 19th, 2026. And may we please have roll call? Oh, I'm sorry. See, you told me that 2 minutes ago, and I already didn't do it right. And calling to order the, let me get the official name, hold on. The Western Municipal Water District Facilities Authority meeting as well. With that, we can have roll call.
Thank you. Good morning. Director Gardner.
I am here.
Director Torres. Here. Director Denstedt.
Good morning. I am.
Thank you. Director Rizvi.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, President Gardner, or excuse me, President Roten.
I am also here. We were
I
having a
just went back a
flashback.
few years. Thank you. It was. President Roten, you do have a quorum today.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite Carissa Hernandez, Customer Experience Representative 1 in the Communications and Customer Experience Department, to come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been here, that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Carissa Hernandez, and I am a customer experience representative here. I've been here for a little bit over 8 months. You might recognize my face from our new Employee News the Drop video, so stay tuned for more of those.
All right.
But if everyone can join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Ford, do we have any public comments? Item 4.
President Roten, we do not. I see no request to speak in the room or on Zoom, and I've received no written comments.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to presentations. 5A, Water Expenditure Ratio / Affordability. Dr. Kurt Schwabe, Professor of Environmental Economics and Policy, University of California, Riverside. Mr. Miller, did you want to say anything?
I would love to say good morning to her.
Okay.
Dr. Schwabe has been a really good friend to Western. We continue to collaborate with him in all sorts of fronts. He has done a lot of really good work on water affordability, and we've had this discussion amongst the board at board meetings and at committee meetings about, well, what does affordability really mean? Well, there's a professor that is trying to explain what affordability really means and where do we stack up as an agency in Southern California based on our water rates. And so, we have a lot of arguments about we got to watch affordability, but everything that incorporates everything. So how are we doing as the water industry? And so with that, let me invite Kurt up to the microphone. Thank you, Kurt, for coming. Oh, and let me give more. So Director Denstedt heard a similar presentation up at Metropolitan. So Kurt's been doing several of these presentations, and when we heard it again at Metropolitan, we're like, well, we should really hear this at Western also. So with that, sorry, now you can go.
Thank you, Craig. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the Board of Directors for giving me this opportunity to present some of this research that we're doing. And this is always, and to Tim for reaching out as well. It's good to see you again. This is always work in progress, and to the board, to the staff, to the public. If you see any interesting questions, any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or my co-authors. We always look for ways to make our research more policy and public relevant. So again, this is always a work in progress. So the title here, Water Expenditure Ratios, Affordability. I'll go into a little bit more about that difference. And it focuses on Metropolitan Water District serviced area. And so this is joint work with myself and Professor Mehdi Namadi at UCR School of Public Policy. and it was supported by Eastern Municipal Water District and Metropolitan Water District. And there's two main objectives with today's talk and this research. One is to using retail level data within Metropolitan Water District to highlight how our affordability measures for residential customers have changed over time across agencies, across different communities, including DAC communities, by rate structure and other factors, to kind of put it in context in terms of how do residential water expenditures compare to expenditures on other services, housing, electricity, healthcare, and then using household level data, also look at how the implementation of AMI, automated metering infrastructure, might change at the household level water use and water expenditures for a subset of agencies. So to achieve this first objective, you see the map of Metropolitan Water District service area. There's all the retail agencies. The ones with the dashes are the ones that are in our data set. And this is the agency level analysis. So we account for 125 out of the 221, approximately 221 retail water agencies served by Metropolitan Water District. It's about 5.2 million households, covering about 87% of the population. And the time period we look at is from 2013 to 2024. So to the extent that income varies across these regions, our sample probably covers most of the income categories and distribution. To the extent that there are smaller agencies that we could not get data on, either through surveys, telephone calls, emails, website searches, et cetera, they're likely on the smaller end. And so to the degree that the water costs differ depending on scale or size of the agency, our sample would not be representative. Some of those agencies include military bases, include trust funds, and include universities, but some also include small public agencies that perhaps just don't have the staff to provide the data to us. So keep that in the back of your mind in terms of the conclusions we draw from this. So we look at what's called the water expenditure ratio. And so it's where you look at the average monthly expenditures for 6 CCFs of water, 6 cubic 100 feet of water in an agency divided by the monthly household income within an agency. So if you look on your water bill, usually it's measured in CCFs per month. And so I differentiate between water affordability because that brings in a whole other slew of challenges. When we think about affordability, I always think about what you pay for essential needs throughout the month out of your income and what you have at the end of the month to pay for other things. And when you can't pay all of your essential water need, or all your essential water bills at the end of the month, you typically have to borrow, you go into debt, or you have late fees. And so in this element here, and with how the state measures affordability, they're not accounting for that, although it's a really, really important issue. And so we'll get into that in a little bit, and I'm happy to talk about it more. But right now, we're just looking at income. And so we're looking at how much of your income, or a measure of your income, goes towards 6 CCFs of water. And so the 6 CCFs of water includes fixed and variable charges on your bill. We account for different monthly measures. So we use a median household income. We use a 20th percentile household income for account for lower incomes. We calculate each of those 125 agencies' water expenditure ratios across time. And again, we use 6 CCFs, which is around 50 gallons per capita day per household, assuming 3 people per household. So why 6 CCFs? And in this sense, the State Water Board lists as one of its affordability indicators if the water expenditure ratios, I'm trying to think if I can get that little, that's all right. If the water expenditure ratios is greater than, for 6 CCFs, 1.5% of your monthly income, then it's a flag as one of its affordability concerns. So we're using something that the state actually has defined in terms of its affordability indicators. It doesn't look at the overall water bill, it just looks at the water costs for 6 CCFs, and that's what we're following here. Okay. And so here's a table. I'm not expecting you to digest all this. A lot of times during this talk, I'll present information to say, if you want this information, it's in the report, and you can spend more time on it. But I'll present it to say it's there, but then I'll just summarize what that means, and because otherwise it would take too long to go through everything here. But here's a summary of the data in terms of kind of water expenditures over time, on average within the sample that we have within Metropolitan District from 2013 to 2024. We have average water expenditures for 6 CCFs going from $45 up to $54 per month. These are in real dollars, so we've accounted for inflation, and the real dollars are measured in 2024 dollars. We have the median household income by census tract, and then average that within each district. We have the water expenditure ratio, which again is the first or the second column divided by the third column, although we do it at the census tract level, so you won't get exactly that number if you take those two columns and divide them by each other. We average across census tracts. And then we have the inflation rate, just to understand how water costs have paired with inflation. And so the summary of all this, if you were to kind of summarize, and you can see where water expenditures go up, income also goes up over that time period, and the water expenditure ratios go from about 0.74 in 2013 up to 0.76 in 2024. So it's not a really big jump on average. And so to summarize this, you might say that inflation, if you calculate the inflation over the rate of increase in water expenditures, outpaced water expenditures 34% to 21%. Now this strikes some people as odd because if you look at statewide numbers and you look at national numbers, you'll hear water costs are rising more than inflation. And so kind of some caveats here. Obviously, we look only at this time period from 2013 to 2024, so you have to account for time periods. We use the CPI, which most of these other measures use, or reports use, but we're only focusing on Metropolitan Water District service area, not California as a whole and not the US as a whole, so you'd expect some differences there. And also, we're only looking at 6 CCFs, whereas most of these other studies, and because of this is how the state defines affordability using 6 CCFs. And most of these other studies look at the full water bill. And so in that sense, if we did look at the full water bill, maybe we would see a reversal of that, but we focused on 6 CCFs. So it's consistent. I believe it's accurate. The second outcome is that the rate increases for water expenditures and income are relatively similar. So income did grow over this time period, and therefore that's why you see the water expenditure ratio being relatively constant. And finally, if you would take away, is that the water expenditure ratio, based on the state's kind of definition of it, within this area is significantly below the state threshold of 1.5%. So kind of going back again, it's about half that. Okay. Now to understand how these things look over time, there's a lot of information here, and I'll summarize it, but just to say you have your water expenditure ratio on your vertical axis, and that red dot is the 1.5% ratio. So if you see anything above that, that's suggesting you have an agency that has an average water expenditure ratio above the state threshold. The boxes below are kind of a summary of all the other data in terms of the median water expenditure ratio for each year. So that little black line that goes across for each of those boxes, that's the median water expenditure for that year. And so you see on average that a lot of those water expenditures on average, the medians are significantly below the state threshold, like we said. But then you see these dots above that red threshold. And again, those are agencies that on average have water expenditure ratios over time above the state threshold. And so if you wanted to summarize that table, you'd say that less than 4% of the agencies have an average median water expenditure ratio above the state threshold. And out of the 125 agencies analyzed, the number of agencies with water expenditure ratios above, the lowest was in 2019 where there was 1, and the highest was in 2024 where there were 5. And again, I want to stress that these are averages, and we know that the average is just one summary statistic in a whole distribution, right? There are tails of the distribution where lower income households will have much higher water expenditure ratios, which we'll show. In terms of how does Metropolitan Water District look in this context? So from 2013 to 2024, the bars are the height of your average water expenditure within that year. And so you see like in 2013, it's around 0.56 maybe. It goes up to the high in 2015 around 0.6, and it drops down to a low in 2022 of just below 0.4. It ends up around 0.41 in 2024. So the observation here is that your water expenditure ratio is significantly below the state threshold of 1.5%, again, for 6 CCFs. How do you compare to other agencies? So here in 2024, we've plotted the water expenditure ratio for all the other agencies in our data set. And so it goes from the highest, of around 0.17 down to about 0.1 something, less than 0.2, 1.7 I meant, and down to less than 0.2. What Western in 2024 is around 0.41, so they're in the bottom 20%. And so there's 80% of the other agencies in our sample are above Western's water expenditure ratio. And a valid question is why? What's causing other agencies' water expenditure ratios to be higher or lower? And remember for that equation that I introduced before, you have a numerator of water costs and you have a denominator of income. And so what's driving it? And so we kind of asked the question, for areas with higher water expenditure ratios that are above the state standards, how do their costs compare to those that are below it? And how do the incomes compare to those that are below it? Is it just that they have high water costs? Or is it that they have just low incomes, which isn't a lot that they can do about? And so we want to answer that question. And so again, we provide these box whisker plots to show how those that are above it compare to those that are below it. And a summary of our analysis would suggest that in terms of average monthly household expenditures for 6 CCFs, those that are above it have an average of around $88 per month for their water. For those that are below it, have an average of about $50 per month. So an increase in about 70%. So if you're above it, you probably have an increase in about 70% of the higher water cost. Metropolitan, in that sense, is around $34 per month. So for 6 CCF, it's actually significantly below the sample average. In terms of income, so that's the other part of that equation, we see that for those that are above it, that would be considered having a hard time or being signals or flags for the State Water District Resources Control Board, their income's around $5,000 per month. The incomes for those that aren't above it is around $9,000, so that's about a 40% decrease in terms of income. And for Western, your income's around $8,631. So both costs and income are responsible for water expenditure ratios. In terms of why is Western lower than the average, you would say it's partly because for 6 CCFs, you have to offer it at a lower cost on average, and that your incomes are slightly higher. And so, and certainly afterwards, we'll have time for questions on any of this. Now let's move into lower income households. And so here's that same table I presented on this third slide. You have the year, the water costs, you have the monthly household income and the water expenditure ratio. But now we've calculated this for lower income households, which within the literature is often represented by the 20th percentile, right? So the bottom 20% of the income within the census tracts. And you can see the big difference there, right? Median household income of $7,500 in 2013 versus $2,300 if it's the lower income households. And so significant differences there, which translates into the second red box, the water expenditure ratio for 20th percentile. You see that it's always over on average, the 1.5%, quite significantly as well. And so that certainly sends a signal that for lower income households, water affordability is a challenge, and it's significantly above the threshold. And then, so lower income households generally have water expenditure ratios greater than 1.5%, and that's being largely driven in this sense by lower incomes. And again, what we do is we show how that compares across time. And here we have the number of census tracts within the whole region and the number of census tracts that are above the 1.5 threshold, and there are quite a few. And so again, on average, if you use median household income, you're saying things are looking all right on average, but there are these tails of the distribution at the 20th percentile, and in that sense, they would be far above the quite a few census tracts that would be considered having challenges exceeding the affordability thresholds. Right? So over 60% of the agencies have water expenditure ratios above the 1.5 degree threshold when you're thinking about lower income households. And then what about different populations? So one of the key populations the state's concerned with in terms of lower income is the disadvantaged communities, or DAC communities, which sometimes we refer to them as. And so we have that same kind of graph over time, the number of census tracts by year that are above the threshold. We have it for both non-DAC communities and for disadvantaged DAC communities over time. And so just the orange is the DAC communities, the gray or gray, I guess, is the non-DAC. And it's obvious what's happening here, right? You see that DAC communities, generally speaking, have higher water expenditure ratios, meaning it's more of an affordability challenge for them. And the summary out of that, one summary you take out of that is that on average, the DAC is around 1% within those communities. It's 2 times the non-DAC community water expenditure ratio. but it's significantly below the 1.5 threshold, although you do see evidence of a significant number of census tracts that are above that level. How does this translate into the number of households that would be considered confronting affordability challenges? And so one of the big problems with affordability literature is that we can't get data on rental units, on high-density housing, because they don't have their own meter. But one way around that is to say, well, let's suppose that the rent someone pays, somewhere in that rent, it is influenced by the water bill, right? What the landlord pays for water. Is it one-to-one? We're not sure, but as an economist, I would say somewhere they're going to account for their water in their bill. And if water rates start to rise significantly, they're probably going to adjust the rent in which they charge their customers. And so in this sense, we say, well, let's put renters in terms of we know what the income are within, median household income within census tracts. How many households within our sample then would be confronting a water expenditure ratio over 1.5%? And we see here then at around 2013, it's over 800,000 households within our sample. It drops down to about 550,000 households within our sample. Obviously, we don't control for population in that sense, so we put it in shares, which is the last column there. So the share of households in 2013 is around 5.4%, and it drops down to 4.4%. That's the trend you would want to see, but there's a lot behind that. But anyway, so in a sense, there might be good reasons, there's certainly a good reason to see the trend going in that direction, but there are still households that are certainly suffering from affordability challenges. And that's what we say there. Total number of households is decreasing, and the number of the share has dropped. And so now the question is, so we've kind of given you an example or an insight into what affordability looks like, or the expenditure ratios within the region. What seems to drive it? What seems to be positively or negatively associated with higher or lower water expenditure ratios? So we set up kind of what, I won't get into details here, it's in the report, but these kind of complex statistical or econometric models to try to isolate different factors' role on water expenditure ratios. So we look at rate structure. Is it volumetric? Is it tiered? Does the agency offer budget-based rates? What's the number of tiers if they use tiered or budget-based rates? Is it a coupled system? Do they offer water, or do they actually offer water and wastewater services? And this could be important in terms of consolidation of, say, administration costs and such, that you could lower your costs because you're consolidating them. What's the scale of the agency? And by scale, we're going to measure that by population. How many meters are served within that, households are served within that agency. And here you might think of economies of scale, right? Most of the cost of delivering water is fixed costs, so the more ratepayers you have, the more you can spread those fixed costs out over ratepayers and lower the average costs of supply. And then income. Obviously, income's going to matter. And for income, we actually use a variable called the percent rental. So typically, it's the case that as the percent rental units increase within a census tract, that represents often, it's related negatively with income. As percent rental goes up, income levels go down. So that's going to be a proxy for an income variable, right? And so there's a lot of, it's a really complex model there. There's a bunch of statistical significance and signs and magnitudes and such. But what you'd want to take away from that is the first thing is budget-based rates are associated with lower water expenditure ratios relative to other rate structures. And there's a lot of, we haven't done a deep dive into this, but a hypothesis that would be consistent with this is that if I'm on a uniform rate structure, I have maybe different costs of water, different types of water with different costs, but I just average it out. But water expenditure with budget-based rates, you might be able to offer your lower cost water at a lower rate and your higher cost water at a higher rate, but the 6 CCFs could be where you offer your lower cost water. Wastewater is coupled systems have a negative association with water expenditure ratios. This would make sense in the sense that if you consolidate administrated units, you lower your overall costs of your supply. Rates, number of rates, as the number of rates go up, the water expenditure ratios go down. Again, this would be somewhat similar to the first hypothesis or first outcome with budget-based rates. Tracts or districts with more renters are associated with higher water expenditure ratios. This would make sense similar to hypothesis. As the percent rental goes up, income typically goes down, and then again, you'd expect your water expenditure ratios to increase. And then finally, the scale effect we see here. We see more populated districts, which are often associated with larger water agencies, have lower water expenditure ratios, and this fits in with the economics of economies of scale. Now, put this into context. And remember, up until now, we've just talked about 6 CCFs of water. But if you look at the fraction of your income you spend on other types of services, everyone understands the importance and the challenge of housing. And here you see, on average, around 37% of your income goes to pay for your housing. Next up is transportation, around 16%, food, 13%, and then healthcare, et cetera. At those tables, the pie chart in the table tells you about the same thing. You see water and sewer in the pie chart. This is for all water and sewer, right? Not kind of essential use. It's around 1% of your income. In the table right there, we also add to that the results from our research. So for 6 CCF, it comes down to about 0.65% of your overall income. And so in that sense, if you're thinking about affordability overall for households in terms of how to help them out, you certainly seem like you would get a lot more return in terms of addressing housing than the ones really lower down. Obviously, it all matters, but if you're thinking about addressing poverty issues with income, housing is something that really requires a significant portion of your attention. So that summarizes Objective 1. And I'm just going to spend 2 minutes on Objective 2. Sorry if I went over time a little bit. But so Objective 2 is to say, rather than looking at the agency level, let's look at household behavior and at the household level. And so one of the parts of this project was we found out which agencies within Metropolitan Service Area were implementing AMI, and we asked, would you want to be part of this study? And it takes time and money and effort to deliver the data to us to do it. And at the end of the day, people are busy, but we had 4 agencies that reached out and said, yes, we'll make our data available to you at monthly level over certain time periods. So we have 4 agencies. We have time periods differ, so I know you can't see it there, but this is the AMI rollout for one of the agencies in the blue from 2009 to 2022, and the other one is from 2014 to 2023. And you can see that the way they roll out AMI is quite a bit different, right? So you can't see, but on the bottom chart, you see the little blue dots earlier on. I'm not sure if we have I'll just point it out. So you see this is a pilot study here. And so these are the number of households that participated, maybe were required to implement to use AMI. And then they stopped for a while, and then they rolled it out to all of their customers in their whole retail agency. And you can see another one, they rolled it out throughout kind of that's a much more dispersed time period. And so we analyzed the role of this in terms of water costs and water use over time. Use a couple different ways to analyze it. We have household level data, water use, water bills, et cetera. And here's the results. And again, it's just 4 agencies. The table kind of gives you the nuts and bolts of the results. So we have water use, and that should be reduction in water use and a reduction in water bill for the 4 agencies. So you see agency A, C, and D, there's about a 1 to 2, a little over 2% reduction in water use that we can attribute to implementing AMI, controlling for all these other factors, right? And so we feel like it's a pretty strong case. I mean, you've heard this argument between correlation and causation. We feel this is a pretty strong argument for causation in terms of how we analyze this. The water bills for agency A, C, and D went down by less than $1 per month for those agencies after implementing it. And then there's this agency B, which just kind of stands out. And they had an 11% reduction per month in water use and a $31 reduction per month in their water bill. And so as we talked to these agencies and understood how they actually implemented their programs, which there is significant heterogeneity in that, a lot of big differences, we found that agency B was different in 2 significant factors. It basically registered its LEAR program, to be part of its low-income rate assistance program. You had to sign up, register for their AMI portal. So you're getting this information all the time. And then also customers who registered for online bills were automatically registered in their AMI portal. And what this gets at is engagement. For some of the other agencies, they would send, at the end of the month, they would send a reminder, listen, it looks like maybe your water bill jumped up a bit because of a potential leak or something like that. And whether the customer receives that or not, it's up in the air. But agency B, I guess our hypothesis is just that customer level of engagement made all the difference in the world. And so we're not criticizing any of the other agencies because this is an evolution. And so I think agency B was just further down its its path in terms of implementing AMI, setting it up, getting it running, and then engaging with customers. And that's what you see as a result. It takes time to implement these things effectively, and I think that's what you get there. And so to summarize then, my conclusions for Objective 1 is agency-level analyses overall based on median household income. On average, things look pretty good. For low-income households, though, there are challenges. Affordability is measured, keep in mind, affordability is measured by the fraction of income spent on 6 CCFs. It has increased just slightly over the last decade because income has also gone up. Water expenditures for 6 CCFs are slightly lower than expenditures, are significantly lower than expenditures on other services, right? And then affordability, it seems to be associated with rate structure, coupled services, socioeconomic factors, and sizes of agencies. There are some things that agencies can do about that and some things they can't. In terms of objective number 2, 1 to 2% decrease in water use and less than 1% decrease in expenditures if you implement AMI for the 3 out of the 4 agencies. Rollout and characteristics differ significantly, as does the engagement, and it's a limited sample. And so this is something that we would love more data on from retail agencies to have a stronger, be able to maybe look at more stronger conclusions there. But again, it's 4 agencies, so you want to be careful with your conclusions there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you ever get to that thing of, I don't know what I don't know to ask?
It's a lot.
That was very detailed. I'll open it up for questions from the board, but I just was curious, who initiated the study? Was it Met?
Yeah, so originally, it was Eastern years ago, about a decade ago, and we did a study for them, and then a number of the other agencies within the district, as well as yourself, phase 1, where we look at affordability in general. And we get really detailed in terms of just what does water use look like, what does water expenditure ratios look like. And then we realized we wanted to do it, or Eastern thought and some other agencies thought this would be really good to look at for the whole region and kind of a snapshot. And I understand wholesale agencies have different mechanisms in which how they interact with your customers or interact with you and to help customers. And so I kind of hats off to them for thinking about how they can participate and help work on this problem with you. But I think they're much more limited in terms of what they can do than what the retail agencies can.
Okay. Yeah, I always wonder how these different studies, what's the curiosity question that starts, the research and the data collection. So thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? I think Director Torres is
I'm like itching.
waiting patiently to ask a question.
This was wonderful. I do have a lot of questions. The first one, I just so I can clarify in my head in simple terms. So when you see a high WER, it's so sorry. I'm going to say this the way I wrote it down.
Sure.
So when you have a lower income, technically you spend more on water. Is right?
That's right. A larger.
Okay. So if we all have $200, we all pay $200. Those of us that might have a lower income, our WR will be higher, right? So
Exactly.
that's the okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood WR in general. So did this in any way account for fixed incomes?
So to the degree that the census tract captures fixed income,
Okay.
it's in there. So within the census tract, it's a representation of the income of the constituents, the ratepayers within that census tract, which includes people that make incomes from a variety of different sources, right? In jobs as well as fixed, including Social Security, et cetera. So it's all in there.
So someone with a fixed income could have started with a low WER and then eventually ended up with a high WER because they didn't move with inflation and with increase of income and all that, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So all of our values are adjusted for inflation. But if they had, say they made $20,000 in 2013, whereas people with non-fixed income that got wage increases that maybe COLA or whatever, their income maybe went up. If you're on a fixed income and it's not indexed by inflation, in 2024, they're still at $20,000. Now, we adjust that for inflation, but they didn't get any wage increases in that
Right.
sense. So, yeah, they're going to be in a worse situation in terms of their water expenditure ratio in 2024 than 2020, without changing their behavior at all.
Okay,
Yeah, so good
that's,
point.
I think, the number one question I get from rate pay. I'm on a fixed income, right? And so that's why I, because you're looking at these numbers, it looks like Western's doing everything it can to be affordable, but that fixed income category seems like, and it's not just Western, but it seems like regardless of what you're doing, your WR is going to go up.
And you could, we did some work for the County of Riverside, the Department of Social Services, looking at the impacts of affordability on older retired communities. Not that everyone is on fixed income, but, and we saw that they had higher water expenditure ratios than people in the prime of their working life, let's
Sure.
say. Yeah, so it gets at your point that this is a vulnerable population.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. And then I guess kind of personal, but I'm working on my dissertation, and it's almost exactly the same topic, except on the qualitative side, right?
Yep.
So I guess it's going to bid to answer, I guess the best example I have is when I'm looking at the news and they're like, the economy's great, and I'm like, I don't feel that. Like, I don't feel that the economy's great, and although your studies show that things look great, how would you say to account for people not feeling it at home, right? Like, hey, I'm looking right at you and I'm telling you that you spend a lot less on water than you think you do, but they're like, no, I feel like I'm spending a lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I think probably two parts of that. One you're going to like and one you're not going to like. All right. So one is just that, right, when we do the 20th percentile,
Sure.
right, these are the lower income people. And so 20% of your population are legitimately correct in saying, wait a second,
They're
this
spending.
hurts, right? That said, often people that are above that 20 percentile, when they see inflation going up, and this is pretty well documented, and their wages go up, they necessarily attribute the wages that are going up because of inflation to they're doing a lot better in their jobs.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
psychological element of it.
Right.
And they just focus on the price increases and saying, well, that isn't fair. But I certainly deserve this wage increase. But the wage increase was due to competition for labor that caused but they're saying that it was because of me, not because of
Sure.
competition. So, and that you can imagine, right? And it's real. And so there's a great, if you're ever in the Substacks or things, by Justin Wolfers today on that exact topic.
Okay.
On why does the psychology of inflation and why does it matter? And so I'll send that link to maybe Craig or Tim, and you can pass it on. It's a really insightful piece. But yeah, great question.
Okay, and just lastly, I mean, this was amazing. What's next for this study? Like, where are we moving? Because affordability is the number one topic in the United States right now, right? So what's next in your studies?
Yeah, so where we're going with this, and we've done it for a few agencies, is I don't necessarily like this water expenditure ratio as a measure of affordability. Right? It's a really imperfect measure. And so one of the things that we're looking into is lateness in paying, shutoffs, delay in payment. Some people use the term delinquency, but that has a lot of negative connotations to it, so we want to say late payments and such. And so I think there we can relate that to, is there a relationship between the state saying 1.5%? Well, do you see people above that actually are more controlling for income, are later in paying their bills? So I think it would help to understand a little bit more about affordability in terms of a better objective measure of that.
Yeah, that's actually where my dissertation will start, on
Oh.
actual shutoffs. And it came from the pandemic, right?
Yep.
Seeing that, but that's really cool.
So that would be, and then what other factors to address it? And so one of the other elements, and I think that maybe there was a question that was posed pre-meeting, and this is where MET maybe figures into it, is that, our affordability concerns today are based on investment decisions yesterday.
Yeah.
And so to the degree that we think about making efficient investment decisions now, which might mean we have to raise rates now a bit. But if you forego efficient investment decisions today because of maybe raising rates now, it's going to bite you later on at a much bigger level, I believe.
Right.
Right? And that's basic economics.
That's a great way to, and as you mentioned, that it just came to me, the psychology of inflation. One thing that I've also hypothesized is the psychology of seeing a water bill, right? You have special districts all over, Southern California, all over, right? And those are usually on property tax rolls. So you don't know you're paying for a railroad district and how they're spending their money, and most of the time you don't care. But you're seeing a constant bill in front of you telling you how much more you're spending. That's where I guess there's that like psychology of I have someone to be upset about, and so that's another. But yeah, I can only write one dissertation. Only need to do one.
Well, it's always just a stepping stone to.
No, I'm good.
Thanks.
But yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much for this. I was blown away the whole time. So
And if
thank
you
you.
have other questions you want to
Sure.
take offline, I'm happy to talk about them.
Oh, I'll be calling you.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Director Izzi.
Yes, I have one question. Thank you. That was a great presentation. My only questions were, when we were looking for AMI data and we were looking at different agencies, did geographical locations made difference, and how, I'm like, what difference did it make? We saw agency B, I'm like, that's a big change in their behavior. So was it the result of that study, that number change, or was it throughout of just looking at AMI data and fixing it was that change?
Yeah, so we certainly, it's a good question about how representative the households were. I'm just trying to go through my mind now. We had some up in the San Gabriel, we had one or two out here, and then we had one near, it's not Long Beach, but near Long Beach area. So in that sense, there was quite a bit of representation, but that number might indicate that there was lower hanging fruit in
was
terms of
not
your
taken.
ability to reduce your water use. And this gets at something of demand hardening, right? If I've already converted on my lawn, or I'm in high density housing and I have no lawn, my only water use is inside. And in that sense, I just have a lot less opportunity to reduce my water use than if I'm maybe further out in the Inland Empire where I've got a lawn. It's a great water supply source or storage source for future droughts. But I would say that the agency that was out here was the one furthest east, was the one that had the largest water use reduction. So it's really perceptive in terms of geography might play some role in this. We didn't control for that.
Okay,
Yep. Thanks.
thank you.
Director Gardner.
Thank you. The water cost that goes into the formula, is that the charge for water only, or is it the delivered cost with fixed charges included?
So it's all the charges that would appear on your water bill. But
Okay.
it doesn't, which includes fixed charges.
Right.
But it doesn't include the charges that appear on your tax bill.
Okay, no,
Alright.
that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
So, okay. I think that's helpful, that it does include that, because if you're looking at just the commodity charge,
Yep.
that's, especially for people who don't use a lot of water, largely the lower income folks, that's a bigger percentage of your water bill, what you actually pay, than the cost of the water that you use.
Yep.
So I'm glad to see that this research includes that. I think it makes it more useful and more applicable from a customer's perspective. I mean, as a water customer, especially a residential customer as opposed to a business customer, I look at how much is my water bill? I don't care as much what the components of the bill are. It's just, how big a check do I have to write? And I'm glad to see that this includes that.
Yeah.
It's a really good presentation, and I think really helpful information. Maybe I just missed it if you said so, but when you give this presentation, if you would highlight that it does include the fixed charges in the calculation, I think that will be informative to people.
Yeah, it's on the second slide, but I rushed through it as I did with a lot of things. So it's a really good point, because I want to make this as easily digestible and clear. So thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is great.
Okay. Director Denstedt, do you have any questions? I can't see her.
No, I do not, because that's essentially the second time I have seen this presentation.
Okay.
So I got to go through a whole set of questions up at Metropolitan. So, but thank you, Kurt. Great to see you.
Same then, Brenda, thank
Okay.
you. And can I just say, Director Gardner, thanks for bringing that up, because I've given this before, and you go through it kind of fast, and I'm really familiar with everything, right? But I got to realize still, again, that there's a lot of information there.
It's
And
a
so, yeah.
very large amount of
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
Just, to me, that's kind of a real key point, and it changes the weight, in my mind, of the presentation. If it's just a piece of the calculation, it doesn't carry as much meaning for me as a more complete one.
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
If the board's done, I have a couple of questions.
I think so.
I think we're done.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kurt. Great presentation. We've been tracking this for a decade as you've been working on this and presenting it at various venues. You know, I find it really smart that Metropolitan is engaged on this and invited you up there. Because if you sat in meetings like in the camp task force where they're trying to balance affordability, the word affordability at Metropolitan and investments in long-term water supply programs, it is very easy to say we can't afford anything because water's too expensive. And, you know, you said it, and it doesn't get emphasized enough when an economist says, oh, if you don't pay for smart investments now, you're really gonna pay the price later. And, you know, this board has really led the way on trying to change statewide investment on bigger projects. And, you know, I just want to hear again from an economist that that really is one way that we can help affordability for our water affordability for our customers by making sure we get the most bang for the buck out of the biggest projects for the state.
Yeah, it's, you know, back in 1952, the investment portfolio theory was written. Philip Markowitz and Harry Markowitz, and he got a Nobel Prize in 2009 for it. Take economists a while to appreciate it, right? But it would be, I just find it odd that you would take that option, that portfolio, that option off the table. There are certainly opportunities for large-scale investments in terms of storage and conveyance and supply that should certainly be part of that portfolio theory. And if you have a portfolio, then you have a greater chance of having lower average costs over time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to take one of the prime opportunities to.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the work because, you know, Director Torres really likes this, but, you know, having, you know, really solid numbers that show it is super valuable because it takes the psychology more out of the argument that we shouldn't talk about projects because we just don't feel like it's affordable. But I think water managers have a sense that, no, we're really going to hurt ourselves and our future economy if we don't make better investments now that are good for everybody and share those expenses to make it more affordable for all.
And this isn't an individual agency issue. There are co-benefits and
Right.
spillover effects with these large investments, not just in the municipal environment, but
Correct.
within ag and with the environment, which then argues for a more collaborative sharing of these responsibilities and even the state. And you're aware of how much less funding there is for these projects over time from the states and federal governments, and it's been put on ratepayers in that sense, which, you know, environmental economics was developed because of pollution, these external impacts. And so this is kind of similar, that these water supply projects provide multiple benefits, and therefore it shouldn't just be on one particular sector to fund them.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and, you know, sometimes I think the economists should be out doing the presentations on water supply, not the engineers, because they bring more, I think, background knowledge over the overarching societal costs. if we don't do the right thing. A lot of responsibility for pushing these objectives.
Can I, I'm sorry if you're not done.
I do have one more, but if
Just
you're
to
talking about this,
piggyback on
go,
that,
please.
I think you're right, Craig. I think having an economist, weigh in on the cost to serve water, but also the cost of overregulation, right? So we should talk about projects and how these investments in the future will reduce your costs, but when we're being overregulated, constantly overregulated, how is that going to, same thing, affect your expenditure ratio, right? And I mean, that's obviously going to probably be a bigger study, but you're absolutely right. If we have a baseline of where we need to be in water, then you add on top of it regulations, you on top of it plans, like all these things on top of it. Now, what could have been considered affordable isn't. And I think that is a conversation worth exploring.
If you listen to Jennifer Pierre, the general manager of State Water Contractors, she's been very vocal about that, trying to stimulate the administration to invest in sites and Delta Conveyance and other things. And she literally, is pushing for hiring a university economist, because she says, I want to know what the cost of each regulation is to the overall cost that customers pay for water. Those numbers are not out there, and people are not aware of what's happening with some special interests that are driving these regulations. And you board members are having to pay the bills, right? You're having to make decisions to raise rates to cover those costs. It's very important.
Yeah, in my regular classes, I teach on environmental economics and public policy. There are certainly cases where it's really necessary for government intervention, and there are cases where there's inappropriate government intervention or too much, so on both sides. And so you've just got to be more critical, and just kind of the broad blanket statements typically don't work. But you're right, we can come up with examples where things are overregulated based on the science and such, and things are underregulated based on the science, but neither is right.
Right.
So, yeah, I
I'm
agree.
going to audit that one.
My last comment, we're going long, but it's been a great
It
conversation.
has great.
Are you doing any research work on low-income programs for water agencies?
Just to the degree that we are looking at affordability issues with an agency, and then we ask them about, can we get some data on if you have a LIRA program?
Okay.
Right? I think, as you know, local water agencies have their own ways of doing things, and this is why you want a lot of the responsibility within the agency local. I think LIRA programs are similarly rolled out very differently across the state. I think that would be a wonderful study to do, to see what we can learn from other agencies and how they're dealing with affordability issues and their rate programs. If that's what you're saying, sign me up and I'll.
Give me a call.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 6, consent calendar. Were there any questions wanting to remove, or do we have a motion to pass the consent
I'll
calendar?
move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Ford, whenever you're ready for roll call, please. Oh, did we have any public comments on consent?
We do not.
Okay, thank you.
Director Gardner. Aye. Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Risby.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
okay, thank you. Item 7, Mr. Miller, any things to be added to the agenda?
There's nothing to add today.
Okay. All right. Item 8, action agenda A, adopt a resolution supporting the Association of California Water Agencies' vision for our water future. Mr. Miller?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So we had a presentation from Aqua at the ComGov committee. So we've moved it forward. They're not able to be here today, so we'll talk about it. We're not going to do the full presentation. If you can go to the next slide, let's get started. So to me, this is kind of the heart of the whole presentation. Aqua has started this I guess it's a member-driven initiative that, we need to make sure that as an association, we're staying out in front of water issues. And they chose to target the gubernatorial candidates to make water an issue for the campaign, but they're not going to stop there because the campaign ends in November. So all this work, you don't want it to stop in November. So it actually, hopefully, will play out into educating the next administration also. So there's really 4 elements to the presentation. It's lead on water, protect affordability, deliver critical infrastructure, and modernize water management. So they've developed 3 work groups. We're very well positioned on the work groups. I think one of our pushes is to keep this laser focused on the highest level issues that the governor will be interested in. If we go to the governor with, 5 data points on LIRA programs, we're going to lose the governor. They just can't, they're not going to stay focused. So what I thought I'd do is, we've got 3 staff members who are working really hard in these groups. So Sarah, Rick, and Josh are all going to give a little update on what they're doing in their work groups. So Sarah, maybe,
Craig.
What?
Craig,
Yes?
Michael Cervantes from Aqua staff is on the Zoom. I see him. So there is a staff member from Aqua that is on here too that probably can speak to some of these issues. So just wanted to share, I see him on there. And good morning, Michael.
Okay. Well, we were told they wouldn't be here. Michael, do you want us to continue? You can make some comments at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think how you have set up, I think it's important that your staff speaks to the working groups and your efforts there. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Sarah, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, thank you, Craig, and good morning, members of our board. As you heard, staff are really participating in this process, and members of the 3 work groups that Aqua's established. Our goal really is to participate as collaborators, certainly not speaking on behalf of Aqua, so I am glad Michael Cervantes was able to join us this morning. As Craig mentioned, we're there to help shift these recommendations from technical, which does become important in implementation, but in terms of making sure that we have a clear implementation plan that also supports the priorities of our region. We know that California has a statewide water supply target, and that conversation with this visioning effort should focus on delivering that. We've offered some suggestions that really emphasizes state leadership, implementation, accountability, and long-term investment. Our role, again, is really helping connect recommendations into a story that our policymakers can understand and actually act upon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rick, who's been really rolling up his sleeves with the Affordability Working Group and can offer some insights on the priorities in that process. Rick?
Thanks, Sarah. And so I'm appreciative for Dr. Schwabe leading off the conversation on affordability today. I think it opens up the sensitivity to how broad the topic can be. I mean, as we think about that, topics like overregulation and the cost that implies, we think of CEQA and other things. So when Aqua envisioned affordability for this subgroup, the leadership limited it so that we could actually stay on topic. Otherwise, we would talk about this forever. And so their vision was in recognizing that as a state, I think the metric is 85% of all water infrastructure is funded by local customers, and so whether that's taxes or water bills. And so really what can we do, or what can the governor do to improve that, whether that's greater state or federal investment? And so it's really on those pieces, getting the state and the federal government to pay more and to better implement this funding. The elements that we all recognize would really help with affordability, like overregulation or implementing some of these projects, are addressed somewhat in the other categories. So they're not there, but affordability is more focused on state and federal investment. And so I would say, although there's a few different topics that ultimately are coming out of this work group, we have been pushing for 3 main ones, and I think these 3 are going to be sort of the top suggestions. So that seems to be fruitful so far. Just as way of context, we're working on the official writing right now of these recommendations that's in draft print, ultimately to go to some general manager leadership throughout the regions to filter through what they think is important. That'll happen at the end of the month. And then the Aqua board will get these in October. And to the degree that they're in agreement, hopefully this is finalized by November for the new governor. So that being said, the three that we're focused on the affordability side, which shouldn't be as a surprise for this board, is that the state prioritized general obligation bond funding or other state funding really on what the state has said are priorities. And by that, we recognize we have a new water plan, a new advisory committee, a new law, and a new water target. So if we're identifying that these projects meet that goal, state, you should fund those projects. Let's not water everything down so that nothing moves forward, which has been the history sort of the state of the last couple of decades. So that's a primary one. Another one, and we actually heard that touched on earlier today, the state has a history of this policy of what we call it beneficiary pays, which is good in concept, except who's benefiting from water has been very limited in practice in the state's history. For instance, we saw this trouble when Prop 1 came out years ago that we're supposed to fund water storage projects, but then the state implemented that by saying, well, the state's only going to pay for environmental benefits and recreation benefits. Well, we all know that water benefits a lot more than recreation and environmental. And so it's expanding the state's recognition of what are the public benefits going with that. You think of like food production and economic benefits and all these sorts of things. So we need to get rid of the artificial barriers that the state has on recognizing public benefits. And the last one sort of comes from the theory of that we see with the advisory committee is there needs to be an ongoing, maybe task force is one word for it, but the water associations, Aqua and CASA, on the wastewater side, having an ongoing discussion with DWR and State Water Resources Control Board and cabinet level staff for the governor to keep tackling sort of the technical issues on how to roll out funding, making sure that these obstacles that we all recognize are dealt with. Those get very detailed, and so you want to deal with those, on a staff-to-staff basis over time, not in this kind of a document. And so with that, I think Josh was going to cover the other two categories.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning, directors. As Craig mentioned, Sarah, Rick, and I have been having the opportunity to really sit and participate on these working groups. And we were actually quite interested that affordability, infrastructure, and water management are just really intertwined. So we've been having a lot of internal collaboration, meeting with Craig and making sure it's synchronized as we provide comments and input and try to guide this as much as possible. So from an infrastructure perspective, the discussion has really focused on continued investment in systems that capture, store, and move water. Sounds simple, but there's a lot behind that, and these are major infrastructure, really. So just looking at investments that should both be major statewide facilities, but also regional facilities. So that really captures, from the infrastructure perspective, trying to keep it really to that critical infrastructure that we know we need. Climate-driven extremes and aging infrastructure underscore the need to strengthen and modernize California's water infrastructure for greater reliability, as we've all seen, right, with the State Water Project allocations. The water management discussions have emphasized the need for coordinated statewide action. So aligning agencies, a lot of what we discussed today, aligning agencies, permitting, funding, local partnerships, and really how to leverage that and move projects ahead. So that focus on project delivery is especially important as the state works towards that 9 million acre feet of additional supply target, and that's really important to try to align these. So this Aqua Vision initiative really can help align and support the practical and coordinated efforts and actions throughout the state. So we're really honored to be on these working groups and coordinate together and be able to help a little bit. So with that, hand it over to Craig.
Thank you, Josh. Hey, Michael, I think now would be a good time if you'd like to say anything on behalf of Aqua.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. And I appreciate your staff's overview, and we really do appreciate that Western's leaning in on these working group efforts. It's really driven by the membership, and it's going to be really advantageous as we finalize these recommendations. So the only thing I would say here is we're moving into this second phase of this project, and that is detailing the recommendations from each working group that we will ultimately present to the next governor. So a lot more information coming. We just had a webinar last week to provide an update to the membership as a whole. We have working groups reconvening at the end of this month in August to continue their discussions And then, a lot more at fall to come in terms of where the development process is, and a lot more at conference too. We'll talk a lot more about where this effort is leading and ultimately what those recommendations are. So a lot more information just overall to you guys in the future, but we do really appreciate Western's efforts in kind of driving this effort.
Great, thank you,
Nice.
Michael. I'll wrap it up before I turn to the board for consideration, but yeah, I think this is, and we heard this out of the board at the ComGov meeting, we worked so hard on a vision for water supply at the state with SB 72, and now it's in law, that it really is the vision of California, that you're gonna plan and build 9 million acre feet of new water supply. And so I think this is a really good opportunity for Aqua to be aligned with that objective that's already in the works. And we have to figure out with Aqua the steps that are going to be taken to really support that and ensure that that aspirational target turns into reality. And that's going to be the hard work. And that's what we're working on with the advisory committee. And, our hope is certainly that, Aqua is going to come on to help deliver those projects and programs and regulatory changes that all have to take place to build our water future. So with that, I'm really happy that Aqua is taking this on. And, we all need to be rowing together, all the associations. So, I think this is a really good thing, and I'm happy to answer any questions for the board as you think about considering it.
Okay, are there any questions? Director Denstedt, do you have any questions? Comment?
No, I have no questions, and I would be happy to move this item to support it. Thank you.
Okay. Director Torres, was that a second?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Director Gardner?
Just a comment to focus a little more on Craig's comment. I think Aqua really should specifically recognize SB 72 implementation and the success of that implementation as a key part of their strategic plan. It is so important. We all worked so hard to get SB 72 through the legislature, signed by the governor. The DWR has got good people assigned to it. They've got reasonable funding to implement it. We need to make sure, all of us, need to make sure that the state continues the necessary funding and actually implements it and identifies where that 9 million acre feet is going to come from and starts approving and constructing those projects. So I really would like to see Aqua specifically recognize that as a specific piece of their objectives in this.
Okay. Thank you. I couldn't agree more with that statement. I'm encouraged to see the regional effort, the statewide effort. And I think that SB 72 and the whole process of bringing it to pass as legislation was kind of the impetus of us all looking beyond just our boundaries, or even our county, or certainly beyond our agencies. But this, we are in this together as a state, and there's so many things that divide us anymore, but I think water can be that unifier, because literally every single human being has to have it. And we can't function without it, and our economies can't function without it, and all of that. So this Aqua Vision is very encouraging to me, and I also would suggest that it's used as part of our toolbox, a big part of our toolbox to advance the California Water Plan and what is required of that from this time on. So we have a motion and a second, and if there's no more discussion, did we have any public comments on this item?
We have no public comment.
Okay, then we will have the vote, please.
Director Gardner. Aye. Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. Cervantes, for being on today.
Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to item B, authorize execution of a professional services contract with eSource Companies for regional water loss technical support services.
All right, Michelle, it's
Thank
all
you.
yours.
Thank you, Craig, President Roten, members of the board. I am actually really excited about the theme that I'm seeing happening at this board meeting today around aligning agencies and affordability around services and support for our agencies, because the item before you today is supporting a regional effort that helps Western Water support its retail agencies in meeting the water loss component of the urban water use objective. This is one of the more technical components of the urban water use objective and requires agencies to identify visible leaks. The water loss component can result in meter inaccuracies, incomplete records, data quality issues, unauthorized consumption, or operational and infrastructure conditions within the system that are not beneficial to our customers. So one of the things that we're doing through this regional contract is really making the technical services affordable. Through a master services agreement with eSource, we act as Western Water wholesaler for our retail agencies to make sure that they have access to scalable water loss technical resources. We conducted a formal competitive solicitation through Planet Bids, and we received one responsive proposal from eSource. This limited response was not a surprise and is consistent with the specialized nature of the work, which requires expertise in water loss auditing, utility data analysis, regulatory compliance, and coordination among multiple water agencies. This is not a one-size-fits-all program. It's something that we've been building on over the last 4 years. Each retail agency has different infrastructure, staffing, data systems, and operational needs. The previous phase of work allowed eSource to assess all of those individual conditions across all of our retail agencies and identify the technical support activities specific to each agency and where they would see the greatest value and the greatest impact. Western Water, in its role as the regional wholesale urban water provider in this area, administers and coordinates the overall program. For the regional programs and master services agreements, Western Water Retail is treated just like all of the other retail agencies. We make sure that it's all equitable across all of our agencies. This proposed 2-year contract has a not-to-exceed amount of $500,000. Of that total, $378,000 will be funded by regional property taxes used to benefit our wholesale activities, and the remaining $122,000 is anticipated to be reimbursed by the Metropolitan Member Agency Administered Fund. And I will say, we just got this approved by Metropolitan, that they will be reimbursing this activity. Staff respectfully recommends that the committee recommend the board authorize the general manager to execute the professional services contract with eSource Companies for an amount not to exceed $500,000. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Are there any questions or discussion on this item?
Second.
Director Dinstedt? I just want to make sure, and if you have a question or comment.
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I think I heard a motion and a second.
I made the motion
And we have no public comment.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for the vote.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to item C. Authorize the general manager to execute an amendment to a grant funding agreement between Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District and Western Municipal Water District for participation in the Santa Ana River Conservation and Conjunctive Use Program. Mr. Miller?
We named it that just to trip people up as they tried to
Thanks.
read it. It gave you a
I don't
tongue
think it's
twister in the
long
middle.
enough.
Yeah. That's why we call it SARCUP, because no one else
Yeah.
wants to read all that.
There you go.
So the board will likely recall that we've already gone to Elsinore and provided them with additional funding that we were able to calculate and attribute to them. So this is the agreement to follow up and formalize that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Josh.
All right, good morning again. And I was watching the time, And you're fast on reading SARCUP. I'm going to use SARCUP because it's a very long acronym. But this is actually a really, I got to say in my career, this is probably the better amendments I've ever had to request. So it's a really good news item. So I'll try to give a little bit of background because this has been a long-term project or program. So this amendment supports Elsinore Valley's participation in the Santa Ana River and Conservation and Conjunctive Use Program, better known as SARCUP, as the project begins closeout activities after about a decade. As you know, the SARCUP program is a regional water supply reliability program involving Western and several partners. In 2016, the watershed-wide program was awarded $55 million in grant funding from the California Department of Water Resources through Proposition 84. In 2019, Western executed a SARCUP sub-agreement with Elsinore Valley to support development of their groundwater storage project. Elsinore Valley's Lee Lake Wells project has created up to 4,500 acre-feet of groundwater storage in the Coldwater Bedford groundwater basin. The project includes wells and pipelines that can produce up to 1,500 acre-feet per year of dry year water supply. During the project, Elsinore Valley encountered PFAS challenges, which required the addition of wellhead treatment facilities and significantly increased their project costs from about $4.5 million to nearly $16 million. Elsinore Valley has been an excellent partner throughout the program and has completed their project on time and on budget, even with many challenges and increasing costs. As you're aware, Western has successfully completed our 5 SARCUP projects within the grant timeline and under budget, which has resulted in surplus grant funds. As such, staff proposes allocating the remaining $3.3 million of surplus funds to Elsinore Valley's Lee Lake Wells project to fully utilize these funds within our service area. This would effectively increase Elsinore Valley's total SARCUP grant allocation from just about $3 million to $6.34 million. This action formalizes the proposed allocation that staff presented to the board in January, consistent with Western's approved SARCUP grant scope and our agreements with SAPA and DWR. As these are surplus grant funds, there is no impact to Western's budget. This action supports Western's recently adopted aspirations, particularly industry leadership and resource management, and demonstrates Western's continued role as a regional collaborator. I want to recognize that this is possible because of the tremendous success of our engineering team in delivering Western SARCUP projects under budget and overcoming the many challenges that came with successfully implementing these 5 projects for our region. We also want to express our appreciation to the board, your continued support throughout the program's evolution over the last decade. And in closing, if approved, this amendment reinforces Western's partnership with Elsinore Valley and helps maximize the benefit of SARCUP grant funding within our service area. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Director Denstedt? Any questions or comments?
No, I'm good. I think we were good with this program and happy to be able to share the wealth.
Okay.
If that was the motion, I'll second it.
Absolutely, yes, it was.
Okay.
Thank you for your interpretation of that.
A motion and a second. Were there any public comments?
We have no public comment.
Okay, and just one comment from me before we go on. There's so much more to this than a brief presentation, and it is a really, on time and under budget. You don't hear that very often in government, and to be able to have excess funds to then put toward another agency's project that I believe ended up being more involved than they anticipated at the beginning, it's all good. So I think this is wonderful. And now we can vote.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
President Roten, to your point that this has been a long time and there's a lot behind this, SAPA is working on an event to celebrate the conclusion of SARCUP. So you'll be hearing about this. Karen's working on it with all of our staffs. So it's in the mix, and you'll be hearing about that soon.
Great. Okay. We like celebrations.
It's well-deserved for that program.
Yeah. Okay, moving to item D, award 3 on-call emergency repair services contracts.
All right, this went through EOWR also, so you've heard a little bit about this before. Dean Standing Warrior is here to present the item. Dean?
Thank you, Craig. Morning, directors. Morning, Western family. This morning, I'm presenting for the board's consideration to award 3 on-call emergency pipeline repair services contracts. These contracts strengthen Western's overall reliability by ensuring we have experienced backup resources ready to respond when incidents exceed our internal capacity. They also provide critical support to our construction team. While we always aim to complete projects and repairs in-house, having on-call contractors available allows us to maintain high service levels, accelerate response times, and ensure continuity of operations during major or simultaneous events. Western Water operates an extensive and complex network of water and wastewater systems, and from time to time, portions of these systems experience failures that require immediate action and attention. While Western Water staff responds to emergencies 24 hours, 7 days a week, certain incidents surpass our capacity of our available personnel and equipment, especially while continuing to maintain normal operations. In those situations, our on-call emergency contractors provide essential supplemental support. These contractors are required to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including weekends and holidays. They are under the direction of our Western staff to provide the labor, equipment, and technical expertise needed to respond rapidly and restore service to our customers. To secure these services, Western has solicited requests for proposals from multiple contractors through our Planet Bids platform. Staff evaluated all responses in accordance with Western's procurement processes, and based on the evaluation, staff is recommending the Board of Directors award contracts for on-call emergency pipeline repair services to Kirtley Construction, doing business as TK Construction, Giles Engineering, and TE Roberts for a 3-year base period with 2 one-year option periods, which would be years 4 and 5, and also authorize the general manager to execute agreements with the firms awarded in the amounts not to exceed $800,000 for TK Construction, $800,000 for Giles Engineering, and $800,000 for TE Roberts. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions? No? Director Denstedt, comments or questions?
I'm good.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Director Rizvi and Director Torres. Any public comments?
No public comment.
Okay, I think we're ready for the vote. Thank you.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Rizvi.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Appreciate the support. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, item E, receive and file a verbal report regarding emergency repair of the Mills gravity line and declare a continued state of emergency.
All right, as we've told the board numerous times, we have to come back at every board meeting, so Derek's back. What do you have, Derek?
Great, yes. It's actually apropos because I'm following on with the item of the emergency repair of pipelines. That's what I'm here to talk to you about. The Mills gravity line did experience unauthorized fill on top of it, and we did some investigations, dug down, and had our consultant identify that the pipeline needs to be replaced. Some certain segments need to be replaced. So since, and then at that time in June, we declared an emergency. And since that time, we've been proceeding with putting together a design for that replacement. They've actually exposed a bit more in preparation for doing the replacement of those segments. We're trying to coincide with the metropolitan shutdowns, which are scheduled for November, the first week of November, the 2nd through the 9th currently. That's to minimize the impact to customers because we don't want to have an outage of the Mills gravity line and then another outage from the Mills plant. So we're trying to coincide those two. And then that will be for the first phase. The second phase we're going to do is in February, end of February through March. Met also has a shutdown then. We're going to coincide that repair, assuming everything works out perfectly. Met does move around their shutdowns. We're coordinating with them now. They actually moved it up a week, and so now we're adjusting our schedules. So in any case, we've made all of that progress. So with that, I just want to request that you declare a continuation of the emergency, and it has to be done by a 4/5 vote.
Okay, any questions?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds.
Take your pick.
Director Dennstead, any comment?
Nope, good.
Okay, and any public comments?
No public comment.
All right. I think we're commented out.
Yeah.
We are ready for the vote, please.
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Risby, President Roten.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
okay.
Thank you,
Derek.
directors.
Okay, item F, adopt a resolution to approve a new revolving line of credit for capital improvements.
Okay, so this, we have to kind of do this twice. So legally, we have to do it once for the board and once for the facilities authority.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna make Rick do the same presentation twice in a row, so maybe if you always remember what he said the first time, we can just vote twice. So I'm gonna turn it over to Rick.
Yeah, certainly not as riveting as Dr. Schwabe's presentation, so I won't even pretend there.
I better see a lot of charts.
Yes. So this item, just to summarize it, is to ask the board's approval to adopt documents that would authorize a new revolving line of credit. This would replace our existing one, which expires here in about a week. And this ultimately is so that we can finance the portion that we identified as part of our 5-year CIP, so we can afford our capital projects. Next slide. So speaking of replacing our existing line of credit, just a little bit of background on that. And so if I can use an analogy to help simplify what are a lot of technical terms as you look through the document, when we talk about a revolving line of credit, this would be something similar to like a home equity line of credit that you would use in your home. You go to a bank and you ask for a maximum authorized limit that the bank's going to loan you, and you do that to do a home renovation project, remodel a kitchen or something of that sort. You don't know exactly how much the kitchen's going to cost you, even though your contractor's told you exactly what they think it's going to be. So you give yourself a little bit of room, but the bank gives you an authorized amount. You spend that, and at the end of that, now you have a loan to the bank. These are usually a variable rate while you're borrowing money, and at the end of it, you fix it out for a longer-term loan against your home, which sort of becomes like a new mortgage payment. So similar to that, this existing line of credit that we have is with a bank. That's with TD Bank, and they authorized us to have $20 million, and that was for a period of 4 years, which expires next week. That interest rate that we pay is a variable rate. It's based on an industry benchmark called the SOFR rate, but generally speaking, it's 3.7% when you do the adjustment that's in the contract. What amount we don't use of the $20 million, or that we haven't borrowed against, we pay a very small, almost negligible fee of 0.2%. So the bank gets a little something if we're not using the full amount, but otherwise it's the 3.7 if we actually do use the loan. To this date, we have taken out $5 million of the $20 million, so we don't owe 20, we owe 5. And if we didn't extend or replace this line of credit, we would owe the bank the $5 million next week. So part of this is rolling that $5 million into the new loan so that we don't owe $5 million next week. Since it's expiring, we had to take an action. So not only are we looking for a new revolving line so we don't owe the $5 million, but really it's to be able to afford what we have identified as a need for a 5-year CIP. And we reviewed that during the budget sessions earlier this spring. So next slide, please. Speaking of that, during the second workshop, if you remember, we went into the 5-year CIP. That identified around $250 million worth of needs over the next 5 years. There's grant offsets and other things, so 250 is the gross amount. But of the 250, we said we would need about 30 in debt to be able to make everything work in terms of financing that. It's an initial estimate. It's subject to change as our CIP change and needs change as we've just discovered things, but certainly we identified 30. So what this item does is to pay for that 30 that we identified as a financing need. And this will align and then be able to afford the board-adopted CIP that was adopted in June. Next slide. So the new line of credit, and so we used our wonderful financial advisor, Darren Hodge. He was at the Finance Committee meeting in July, but we worked with him for years and used him to help negotiate the new line of credit on our behalf. And so he came out with more favorable terms, even with the existing bank. And so what we're looking at with the new line of credit would be not a $20 million line of credit, but a $35 million line of credit. So why 35? It rolls forward the 5 from the existing one, and it leaves 30 to fund the CIP. And so this would be for another 4 years, expiring in August of 2030, and essentially has the same basis to look at how the interest rate is calculated, but with a better calculation for the district. So instead of 3.7, it would be, like right now, it would be 3.59, so a slight reduction in the interest rate. Same fee for the amounts that we don't use. We do have to use consultants to negotiate all of these things, a lot of legal assistance. And so you've got roughly about $130,000 in issuance costs, which get paid for by the financing. And then, as I mentioned, $5 million will be rolled over from our existing one, leaving $30 million left to pay for the CIP. In our budget, as well as our future budgets and financial projections, are all sufficient to pay for what we expect as debt service coming off of this line of credit to pay for the CIP. So this wouldn't trigger any additional rate increases in and of itself. Everything was factored in. Next slide. So why a revolving line of credit versus something like just issuing bonds, which are the traditional route when we talk about financing? Ultimately, we envision this will be issuing bonds, but what this does is it gives us sort of a short-term ability to only issue as much debt as we need. If you have noticed, as we bring these actions to you on CIP projects, often things don't go exactly as we anticipate. Either things get delayed, or they're more expensive, or we have to reprioritize some projects versus others. And so instead of essentially taking a loan out upfront based on an estimate of what we're going to do, is you have a line of credit to actually use what we actually spend for projects, which means we're only spending the interest amounts on amounts we're actually using versus just taking out a lump sum up front. And so this also is based on shorter term interest rates instead of a full 30-year debt, which means those interest rates are generally lower than they would otherwise be. You saw in this one a little less than 3.6%. If we did a 30-year bond, the 30-year bonds are something like 4.6%, so almost a whole extra percentage. And so what it does is it allows us over the next few years to spend on these projects, and at the end, probably in two to 3 years, we'll look at what we actually spent, and then we'll convert that, we'll refinance it into actual long-term bonds, as well as any other financing needs that we identify. But you want to do that as with a larger amount all in one undertaking rather than small amounts over time, just for economies of scale, since we're using consultants to do this every time. There is some risk with variable rates, but you'll see in the next slide, the benchmark that we're based on is very stable. And frankly, if rates began to rise and we thought it was more advantageous to make this fixed rate debt, we would do that at the time. So we still have options there. Next slide. This just shows the underlying variable rate. Variable rates all the way going back to 2025. They do change, but you notice it's not very much. And so these mostly follow, when you hear about Federal Reserve actions changing short-term rates, this follows very, very much in line with that. So the expectation is slight increases, possibly in the next year, to follow inflation as it increases, but it would be relatively moderate in our expectation. And next slide. So we've put together a team to do this. As I mentioned, we have Darren Hodge on the line. If you have any questions for him, as well as Kim Byrons, our expert bond attorney, handling all the work and reviewing the documents, the hundreds of pages that you saw in the packet, as well as the bank is the same bank that we used before, TD Public Finance, although a different arm of the bank. And then our trustee, the bank that handles the actual nitty-gritty of moving funds and ensuring compliance, is the same bank that we use with all the rest of our debt. So a trusted partner that we've learned to count on. Next slide. And so what you have before you, as Craig alluded to, are two different actions, one with your Western Water District board member hats on, and then right after this will be with your financing authority or facilities authority hat on. Each one is approving a resolution, and that resolution then authorizes the agreements that are attached, which then allows us to implement this. And so with that, if you go to the next slide, the recommendation is for this board to adopt Resolution 3393. authorizing the debt. Open to any questions, as well as our consultants on the line as well.
Okay, are there any questions? Director Gardner?
Not a question, but a comment. I think something that's really important in this financing mechanism, you know, yes, it's slightly lower interest rates and looks like that should hold, but that's good. The thing that I think is really important is that we can get out of it without a prepayment penalty. If at any time circumstances make that the wise thing to do, we could take reserve dollars and get out of this agreement without any penalty. I think that's a really good protection for our ratepayers. And I think this is a wise thing for us to do. It's the best move for our ratepayers, and I would move approval.
Okay, Director Denstedt, any comment?
I will second.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I will second.
Director Isby is a second, and any public comment?
We have no public comment.
Okay. I think we're ready for the vote, please.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Risby.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, so we will move on to item 9, action agenda, Western Municipal Water District Facilities Authority, which we opened at the beginning of the meeting concurrently. A, adopt a resolution to approve a new revolving line of credit for capital improvements. So my understanding is we've already heard the staff report. I have one question because I noticed a difference in the agenda item for this item in that there's a different attachment or an extra attachment, indenture of trust. I was wondering
Yes.
why is that in this one and not in the other one?
So each entity, the Water District and the Facilities Authority, are technically doing different things. So the Facilities Authority is the one actually issuing the debt with the bank. And then you have the Water District, which then turns around and says, Facilities Authority, I will repay the debt that you just incurred, and you give me the projects that you're constructing. And so it's a legal convolution to make everything work. And so with that, the Facilities Authority is the one, because they're the one issuing the debt, that has the agreement with the trustee, which is called the indenture, that has all of the specific details on how the debt's to be governed, the compliance, the very specific terms. And so because it's the Facilities Authority's debt, it's the one doing the agreement with the trustee, which is why it has this different agreement with it.
Okay, thank you so much. Second, I'm just jotting this down so I remember it when I go back and look.
And generally speaking, if there's a question in your mind, why do we have these two things, the Facilities Authority and the district, and why isn't the district just issuing debt? The basic reasoning behind that is if the district directly issued the debt, you would have to hold an election, a voter election to issue the debt. By doing it through the JPA, you don't. And so that's one of the principal reasons we go through all of this effort.
But we love elections.
Yeah.
We love
Okay.
elections. We love elections.
And an election is not inexpensive.
No, I'm joking.
I know.
And,
And
okay,
it's
so
very common practice
that
in
begs
water
another
industry. Yes.
question for me. Why with the JPA is there no election required?
Generally, the understanding is just the statutes which govern which type of agency has which limitations, but I don't know if Mr. Ballinger has anything else to add to that.
That's correct. Because it's a special district, separate and apart from the water district, it's not subject to the same rules under Prop 218 and the GAN limit.
Okay, great. Definitely learned something new. Okay, comments or questions? I think we covered that. Any public comment on item 9A?
No public comment.
Okay.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. And Director Denstedt, did you have any comments?
I'm good.
Okay, I think we're ready for the vote, please.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Director Risby.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we'll move on to item 10, reports. Mr. General Counsel.
Good morning, Madam President. I have nothing to report today.
Oh, okay, thank you. We'll move on to general manager and staff reports. Mr. Miller.
Thank you very much. Our last board meeting was in mid-July, so we've had a lot going on this month. So I'll just kind of speed through this. I think most of the board members were at the Aqua Region 9 presentation, so that was a really nice event. Enjoyed being on the panel with Sarah and Dan Denham and with Heather Dyer. Metropolitan also held another GM strategy meeting, so Shivaji sets these up every other month so that all the member agency managers can get together with Shivaji and talk about planning at Metropolitan schedule and key issues. That was on July 20th. We had a CMUA board meeting that went very well. Sometimes the board will ask me about, well, are our member agencies aware of things that are going on at Metropolitan? So on the 29th of July, we had another one of those meetings. We meet with them every other month. So those are very active meetings. We give Met updates, California Water for All SB 72 updates, but one of the key things that we talked about in this meeting was, and it's a little bit of a follow-on from the meeting with Shivaji at Metropolitan, it's certainly sizing up like we're going to have a very wet year. We don't know for sure. Sometimes a really strong El Nino historically has been the driest years.
Right.
But the overwhelming average is that it'll be a wet year. But we want to make sure that we're thinking about if it is a very wet year and there's surplus water, what can we do? And so we're spreading that to our member agencies and asking them the question is, could you take additional surplus water? What would trigger your interest in taking that water? So we're working on that with our water resources group. Very interesting on.
Can I break in on you? So sorry. Here's an interesting question, and I say this just because I'm down in San Diego, and there is a lot of conversation going on down here on the news about that expectation of a very wet year, and what they're telling people, you've got like a 90-day clock to get things ready around your home, businesses, and try to do that. So are we planning on doing any messaging out to our customers as well? So we have a lot of sprinkler systems that still are not on auto function and a variety of other things. And are we doing stuff to prepare our facilities should we have what's anticipated as a torrential downpour on anything, just as a curiosity's sake? And, happy to have you bring that back at a different meeting if you'd like to discuss it in more of what your detailed plan is or how we address potential wet years.
Well, certainly yes to both of those. So the ops team will be well prepared, as they always are, and they're anticipating, we're talking about already. But for sure, we've done that in the past. We've sent out notifications to customers about rain events and trying to get them to shut off their systems and save some money and conserve water. And so that's a pretty standard procedure. So we'll be thinking about, our role is not flood control, so we don't want to assume liability for flood control messaging, but we'll certainly be talking about from a water supply perspective. On August 4th, we had a one-on-one meeting with the Metropolitan staff that's now in charge of the Camp for Water program. So that was a great meeting, 2 hours, trying to collaborate on a direction for camp to make that a successful process. So we really enjoyed that conversation, and we've had a couple of follow-up conversations with the Met staff on that. On August 5th, I went up to Sacramento. The purpose of the meeting was to meet with the new DWR director, Tom Gibson, so I did that. I also took the opportunity to meet with John Rubin from Metropolitan, who is kind of a strategic advisor for the board. and for Shivaji, so that was good to actually do a follow-up on camp and some other things. I also was able to take the time to meet with our ag partner. Jason Phillips was the CEO at Friant and was one of the big players in collaboration on the Water Solutions Summit Group and bringing the ag entities along on SB 72. So it was good to touch base with him again. He has left Friant and he's now at HDR in the consulting world, but our relationship continues. Heather Dyer and I met on SBBA Water Master issues. We have regular meetings on that to make sure we're very well aligned. And then the last thing is last Friday I made a presentation to the Mountain Counties Association about SB 72 and California Water for All, but maybe more importantly to us, all of our directors were at the BIA Water Conference, and I thought that was an outstanding conference, and they do a great job of bringing in speakers, both Adon and Shivaji and Jennifer Pierre and others. It was really good, so enjoyed that. The board had asked about our budget document and how to get a hold of that on the website. It's loaded. It's in the toolkit. So happy to share how to get to that. It's on the dashboard. So that's a kind of a check mark. Changing subjects, September 2nd board meeting. We're light on topics. We covered a lot of topics today, and so I'm recommending that we cancel that September 2nd board meeting. So willing to hear any comments you have about that, but.
You forgot to say it's Fazia's birthday. That's why we need to cancel.
And we'll give the board a day off. And it'll save a lot of administration time so that we don't have to put together a packet to say happy birthday.
Do we need do we have to vote or just?
No, I think you
agree,
can
or-
just tell me that that's acceptable.
Is there a consensus to, yes?
Thank you. And then kind of some sad note, we don't do this very often, but this was announced also at the Aqua Region 9 meeting, but a good friend of ours, Gary Arant, passed away on July 16th. After 53 years of public service to the water industry. And a big supporter of SB 72 and a really big supporter of trying to be a voice to change water in California. So a really fun person to talk to, a little bit of a rabble-rouser, but he's really going to be missed. And so just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. And that concludes my comments.
Okay. Sorry, I turned my page over to scribble down some notes there and.
Oh, that concludes my comments. The next item under my comments is Bianca. Where did Bianca go?
Here she is.
So the TIDES program, these are the Teen Internship for Development and Experience. So this is our first effort. Bianca did a fabulous job of corralling the gang and actually inspiring our internal team to do a great job of kind of showing the kids around and showing them what we do in the water industry. And so I'm going to turn it over to Bianca to kind of give the final report since it's over.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I know it was short but loved. We love our acronym, so of course we had to do TIDES, right? We couldn't keep it just an internship. So the program ran for 3 weeks, so July 21st through August 6th. We had 8 students selected. They all ended up being rising seniors at different schools, so going into their senior year. So we had Pauley High School, Ramona High School, North High School, and then Martin Luther King High School all represented. There was 2 pathways the students could choose from. So there was the operations route, so more field, hands-on, and then there was the administration route, which supports the entire enterprise here. What made our program different is that every department was actually included. So each pair of students spent time with every department within the entire agency. So they got to see how we all work together and collaborate on different projects to move forward here at Western Water. The first 2 weeks of the internship, they rotated throughout the departments, and then the last week, we gave pairs the option to stay with the department of their choosing. So they actually got to pick which department impressed them most, and then they got to spend their final week there with those that group, which was really exciting. So in the end, we had water quality, distribution, engineering, and mechanical services all selected. And then on their final day, we did mock interviews, and then we did group presentations. So they were tasked with, on day one of the internship, with a project for their final day in their own creative medium, so however they wanted to present, but what their experience entailed here at Western Water. I think Craig mentioned it, but the most important thing to me is the buy-in that we got from the department. So what started with an idea with me and my team ended up being something that the entire agency just completely grabbed onto and made their own. So that was really powerful and impactful to see. And you also could see, talking to the departments about their experience, how the kids actually impacted them, not just the other way around. And they're like, we need to do more of that. And I was like, I know, it's great, right? You feel rejuvenated after having these kids come on site. So with that, we had Micah tailing us. We felt like celebrities for 3 weeks, getting footage of the internship. So I'm going to introduce that video and then turn it over to Craig.
I heard about the TIDES program from my teacher, and she just said there's a really cool opportunity this summer that you can apply for, and so I thought, why not?
When I saw this TIDE program, I was immediately captivated and I wanted to join. I wanted to see, how does teamwork play into this? What is required for a proper operation? How does water successfully get from point A to point B, clean, but without any waste and without any harm?
I needed work experience, and I didn't have any before, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to try.
The Western Water TIDES program was developed because when HR would go out to these career fairs focused on high school students, students would constantly ask, what opportunities do you have for me? And at that time, we did not have anything for them. And we saw a gap in getting students that on-site, hands-on experience that they were looking for. So we had a lot of questions about how can I volunteer with your agency? So we saw that as a perfect opportunity to let's develop a program where we could bring students on-site and get them that experience that they so crave.
The water industry is an exciting place to build a career because there are so many different opportunities and you're never pigeonholed into just one. There are many opportunities to change, whether there's a new interest or a new educational path, a new certification that someone can explore, and that may take them down another avenue that they didn't think that they could do before.
Right now I'm currently a Riverside City Fire Explorer, and the end goal is to become a firefighter and do something in administration. I feel like this internship would really help me get some type of background in admin and hopefully progress there.
What makes TIDES unique as an internship program is that it is focusing on many different departments. So instead of having an intern placed with one department and that's where they're going to spend their time, we're actually rotating these interns throughout all of our departments within the entire agency. So they're getting to see again how Western Water works as a whole.
After I went into this internship and I saw these different intricate departments, how important each of them are, like a spider web. It's like, even if one strand is gone, it ruins the integrity of all the other strands. And so being able to see water quality, seeing the distribution team, looking at administration, even human resources, because without each and every one of them, I wouldn't have safe drinking water, I wouldn't have a faucet, and most importantly, I wouldn't have a garden. So I thought it was pretty important to have each of these.
Success for a student coming out of our TIDES program looks like someone who is excited about a potential career in the water agency, is excited about the opportunities that lie ahead of them, may have a desired career path, an idea of what that looks like, and to walk away with a smile on their face and a confidence to go out there and take on whatever life may come their way.
This experience changed the way I thought about the water industry because I didn't really know much about it. I didn't really think beyond like what the big water tanks or anything like that. But now that I've been through this, there's so many different career paths that you can take just through this industry alone.
What surprised me most in this program was probably seeing the process
for how the water gets cleaned, especially for irrigation purposes. I didn't even know like the process of how water is treated, or that there are even water mains under the street.
When the students look back at this program, I really hope that they take away going forward what an employer and workplace should be like. We are a top workplace, and we really reflected that into this program as we met with them. I hope they take that forward to their next place of employment.
I think I'll walk away with a newfound appreciation probably for just how water is able to go from point A to point B far away, and also just all the people that work to purify it and distribute it to me and my family.
Advice I would give to any student considering applying for our Tides internship in the future is to do it. Come join us. Come be a part of our amazing Western Water team. We would love to have you, and we would love to show you how amazing a career in water can be.
So that was it was a really cool program, and the staff really enjoyed it, and it was fun to watch from the first day when the kids came in and had to stand in front of our executive team at the Monday morning meeting and introduce themselves to where they ended up after 2 weeks. It's like, hey, let me tell you about how this works.
Nice.
So if I can have 5 more minutes, I thought it was, Micah does a fabulous job in our whole communications team with that video. It's so professional, and we'll use that to market these programs in the future.
Sorry, could you say that again?
No. But I thought it would be really interesting to see it through the kids' eyes. What did the Tides think of that? They put together their own video.
Oh, God bless them.
Nice.
Don't cry, directors.
I actually don't smell it right now. Is that weird?
Awesome, awesome. So we're gonna put it on our first one, just like it is over there.
That's right.
Good job. Let's close it up. Set. Our SC2 flow ratio is 34%. So that there's like a block wall essentially in the center of that turbo. All the water goes down, makes a U-turn, and comes back to that. Yeah. You can do it on speaker.
Hello, Gilbert. This is Avalon with Western Water. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
We're looking for 20-foot rolls of rubber masking.
So, just a couple of the ancillary parts on it, and these are Caterpillars. They're pretty good for. It doesn't have no DPF or DEF or anything on that. Everything's like greasable, right, for serviceability and longevity.
Everything that gets flushed down is right there. So you can see. That's all waste, human waste, for the majority.
I'm gonna show you when I back it all the way off. You'll see him move away.
Okay, go for it. Grease is drying.
Okay.
Just, there's one more coming. Yay!
Yeah, they're so comfortable with that medium. Didn't
Yeah.
didn't think twice about it. Hey, we'll put this all on film and
That
make
was
a
great.
video out of it. So it was great. So we asked them to make sure they share that at school.
Oh,
Because
definitely.
we want them to market too,
Yeah.
not just us.
Oh
So
my
that's the
gosh.
program. So we're looking forward to the next chapter of that.
So it'll be next summer?
That was my first question. When are we doing this again?
No. I have a
Mike.
few comments. So
Oh,
I don't know if we.
go ahead. Director Gardner had caught my eye. Sorry.
The internship programs are great, but they're almost all pointed at people in higher education, community college, or particularly four-year colleges and grad school. This one was pointed at high school students. And I'm really proud that Western did that. I think you can see that the students really enjoyed it and learned from it. And for the water industry, where many of our jobs are not jobs that require a four-year degree, they're technical jobs. People who actually build and operate and maintain all our facilities. And this is a chance to reach people who might be interested in that as a career that you miss in other sorts of internship programs. So I'm really glad to see us do that. I hope we continue it and are able to expand it.
I love it. I have to, I mean, most of you know how passionate I am about workforce development, especially in the water industry. I was $60,000 in college debt before I knew that I could take a T1, D1, some courses, and start a good career. These are good careers. So the fact that we have rising seniors that now know there's a real pathway into a good career without you having to go to college, or maybe now that you're in college, you have a better understanding of how to become an engineer in water resources or whatever the case is, right? That's huge. I got emotional. I was also a junior in college when I first dehydrated a sample, right? So these are such important lessons from understanding that a water professional is not just somebody that turns on and off a faucet. It is the person that is in the office making those orders, approving those orders, all the way through the construction crew, construction management crews, right? And it expands so much into what a water professional is. Again, good careers. I think the most significant part of this internship is that it was paid. That is incredibly rare. one of the biggest barriers in workforce development and then getting them into these careers is that most people cannot afford to have an unpaid internship, right? As much as they'd love to, they can't afford to get here. They can't, well, not in their case, hopefully not in their cases, but they can't afford childcare. And so workforce development falls short when we can't help them get through these very important programs. And so it is significant, and they paid, from my understanding, it was very well paid for these kids. And then again, I'm assuming they got to keep their little uniforms, but if not, well, that's okay. But oh my God, how cute! Oh.
Yes, so the two interns that had selected mechanical services, which was shown in the video, they made nameplates with Western Water in the machine shop. They made, I want to say, some bolts for some machinery, and then they made that cube that Dawn was shaping at the end. They got to keep that, but they got to keep their uniforms. We gave them all sun shirts, like long sleeve UV sun shirts, since they're going to be in the elements. So they got baseball caps. We definitely made sure they were taken care of. They were really excited. The only thing they didn't keep, and they were all sad, was their badges. I'm like, I'm going to need to collect those. I'm sorry. I need to lock that down.
I point that out because it is actually an investment in our kids. I have my first hard hat, like, those investments go a long way. We invested in them, not just by paying them, but uniforming them and opening their eyes to such a great thing. And I love that. And then a key component in workforce development, real workforce development, is preparing them to get a job. And so the mock interviews, I would say resume writing, but we probably didn't get to that point, but.
We actually did.
Oh,
we did.
That's awesome.
So they spent a lot of time with me and my team. So they're probably sick of us, and that's why we didn't get picked as a pathway. But we did spend a day with resume workshops. So that was in the middle, actually right before we took them to the ComGov meeting on the 28th. That morning was spent on resume writing. But the last day that I mentioned the mock interviews, we pulled the managers from the departments that they were shadowing, and they actually sat on the panel. We had the same 5 questions for all the interns, and then at the end of the panel, we gave them live feedback. So, hey, you said this. This could have been better stated this way, or you didn't sell yourself here. You said that you've been on some of our students were very heavily involved in after-school academics, and they briefly touched on that. And so we said, you should have mentioned this when you mentioned you're a president of this club. That's how you could have answered this question. Or conflict resolution, you should have mentioned this. And so they really appreciated that. A few of them were like, we have no notes. You're hired. They're really good. So it was really great to see the progress, though, from day 1 to day 21.
No, then that's even better. I mean, that's huge. Because you leave an internship, you're like, oh my God, what's next? And so to actually prepare them to enter a workforce is, again, a key component. And I'm hoping, in the future, to see how this translates to jobs, whether here or at IUA or Eastern, right? To be able to say, hey, we had 8 interns, all of them ended up in a water job, or 6 of them, and 2 of them ended up in city government, whatever the case is, right? Like really, because that's how we take care of our kids and our future workforce in water and wastewater resources. And so I love this program. This is awesome. Thank you.
That's where the WAVES program is going to come in next.
Oh my God, I don't know what that is.
So that's going to focus on these ones coming out of high school, those ones that are starting college, and that will be a 6-month targeted internship.
I love that.
Hopefully Tides will turn into riding the wave. We'll see.
I love that.
This is awesome. So I see some faces in the audience that I think I recognized from some of the video, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but if any of you wanted to share a little, your feeling or an experience that you had during this program, we would love to hear it. But if you don't, I totally get it.
I will volunteer. Just kidding. Hi, I'm Chelsea Rhodes. Nice to meet you guys and see you again. It was an amazing experience to be a part of this program. Having worked in public agencies for coming up on 20 years, this was probably one of the most rewarding things I've done. I will honestly say that. I get a little emotional. I miss our kids. They were so great. We had this little bond with them. And like Bianca saw, you know, these little caterpillars came to us and they totally took off as butterflies into their senior year. So it was a really amazing program. And just seeing like Bianca talked about, the rejuvenation in the staff, I think it was really nice to take a step back and think, why did I get into water? You know, or why did I get into public service? And so for some of our teams, we kind of heard that resonate, and it just warmed my heart. So just thought I'd share that.
Thank you for
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Laura, if I can, just one last suggestion for Bianca, I think probably your piece of the organization. Understand them wanting to keep their badges. Think about if there's some way we can mark the badge as not valid anymore, but it's still a keepsake.
Like a hole punch driver's license.
Yeah, maybe you want something that's more obvious so that if it gets lost and it can't be reused, you know, so it's expired or something. But I've got a collection of badges from over the years. Some have got holes in them. I think one says invalid. Which is why I walk funny, I mispronounced invalid. But anyway, just an idea.
One of the students was like, okay, I'm gonna have you hold this on for me when I come back.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, wow. That's great from start to finish, and thank you for sharing all that with us. Really appreciate it. Okay, I think is that complete, the general manager? Okay. Then we will move on to item C, which is the director comments and, oh no, wait, I'm sorry. Director comments, your reports, yes. SAPA, Mr. Gardner.
Okay, SAPA has been relatively busy. July 21st meeting, they authorized 2 contracts, both with West Yost. One is to develop a ambient water quality database for the Santa Ana River. The other is a special total dissolved solids study on a portion of a required study on a portion of the river. On August 4th, they authorized contracts for on-call grant writing assistance, and finally approved the salary schedule for fiscal year '27. That's a CalPERS requirement. And then on the 18th, yesterday, they approved a required procurement policy and purchasing authority update, and talked significantly about the development of the SAPA strategic plan, trying to control maybe some mission creep that might be occurring there. And got a briefing on SAPA's internship program, which is not as good or as big as ours, but neither is SAPA. But they have 5 interns. And I did suggest to them that as they move forward with the program, they consider offering 1 or 2 of those slots to high school students, not just higher education students. And they thought that was a good idea. So that's it for SAPA.
Okay, we'll move on to MET, please. Director Dunstedt.
Yes, thank you. Metropolitan, so probably one of the biggest things to share is the assessed, we moved this meeting back a week to get all of the assessed values from all the counties for our voting percentage allocation. And so Western's voting percentage now is 3.9% of the vote represents Western, so we'll take it.
That's good.
We keep ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. So, and Eastern also increased to 3.5. So that's good. The other thing that always is nerve-wracking, I'm sure, for finance staff especially, is the fact that while we talk about the ad valorem rights, and we increased them this year, the approval of those actually take place at this vote for that to move forward on all of the tax rolls for collection. So that did actually pass with no hiccups and no bumps in the road. So that's very good. Happy to report that. Otherwise, it was a pretty quiet and uneventful. There has been some discussion over that admin code change. It was suggested that perhaps before we make any changes to the admin code to talk about our climate adaptation and Camp for Water, that we complete those processes first. And so we'll see where that discussion leads. But I think that might be really appropriate given the fact that we haven't quite landed where we're going with the whole process and how it's going to be developed and shook out and what's going to happen there. So that is about the extent of it. And then I don't know if we had heard or not, but it was announced yesterday, and with much sadness, our partner agency, Joe Moab's father has passed away recently. And so I hope our agency has sent condolences over to our partner agency over there and to Joe and his family. So
we have done that.
And the meeting was adjourned okay, thank you. And the meeting was adjourned in his honor. So, and that is all I have to report this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to Chino Basin.
Chino Basin Water Master had a couple of meetings, their regular board meeting July 23rd. Everything is really focused on whether to adjust safe yield for the basin. There was a long involved model run, very expensive. Then there was a peer review of the model, which came up with some suggestions to improve it. And it was run again. There was continuing discussion about whether safe yield needs to be reset at this point or not. Each of the three pools had said, go ahead and use the number that came out of the model. When it came to the advisory committee, there was a lot of discussion about, well, maybe we don't need to reset it, or maybe we should pick some other number. So when it came to the board, there was even more discussion, and they did not take action on that date. They voted not to follow the recommendation of the advisory committee, which was to send it back through the pools and start over, essentially. That then requires, if you don't want to follow the recommendation of the advisory committee, you have to hold a special hearing about why not and what you do want to do. So that meeting occurred on August 4th, and the board went back to the number that came out of the model. So safe yield has been reduced from 131,000 acre feet a year to 121,200 acre feet a year. It will be reevaluated in 2030. It's mandated to be reevaluated in 2030, maybe reset then. If evidence shows there's an issue either way, it can be revisited between now and 2030. So a lot of time and effort invested in trying to figure out what to do with safe yield. It does have, a reduction in safe yield has a negative impact on some of the parties. It doesn't affect other parties at all. So I'm glad it's behind us. And that's it for Chino Basin.
Okay, and I think RCRA is September, right?
RCRA and
Okay.
SOAR are September.
Oh, both of those, okay. And Director Denstedt, do you have a WRCOG report?
If my iPad would unmute. No, we have a meeting next month, and it'll be late because of Labor Day.
Okay, next month. Okay, and how about Aqua? I should have just had you stay on there.
We did have our Region 9 event, and that was really wonderful. So we had a huge turnout for that, as always, for Region 9 stuff, so that's great. But I appreciate my colleagues who attended that. So it was a great turnout, great program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to director comments. Director Gardner, do you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. We skipped over CDA. They just did
Oh,
some.
I'm so.
That's quite all right.
What did I write?
They did
that was
routine
Chino
sorts
Basin.
of.
Okay, sorry about that.
Contracts, just operating stuff, nothing particularly interesting. For director comments, I think probably everybody knows, but for Western's election in November, there were not competing candidates in Division 1 or Director Denstedt's division, so Director Denstedt and I will be appointed in lieu of election by the County Board of Supervisors. It's nice for us, but it's nice for Western and Western's ratepayers because we don't have to pay for an election. And it's on the order of $350,000 per election that we won't have to fund. There is going to be an election for Division 2, Director Torres' seat. There are 3 candidates that have qualified for the ballot, and so that should be an interesting election. Let people decide which candidate they like. Director Torres, of course, has her own election for some other agency. And good luck. It's down to 2. It's a runoff there. And good luck to you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Director Torres, you want to go next?
Yes, I actually wanted to start with congratulating my colleagues on being appointed in lieu, but I mean, I think it's a testament of the job you're doing here. Ratepayers, voters, whatever, trust you enough to say, let's give it another try. So congratulations. I think that's a great outcome. Just updates since the last month that we've not been here. I had, I think, announced last time we were going to do a backpack drive, which was incredibly successful, partnering with RUSD. 1,200 backpacks were given, 1,000 hot dogs, 500 cookies, all kinds of stuff. Families from all over. The event ended at 1, and we stayed almost till 4 p.m. Cutting hair for little girls and little boys who needed it to be ready for school. They all came out fresh. So thank you, everyone that participated in that and the families that joined us. I was lucky to go to the Aqua Region 9. Got there right on time for our panel, and always very amazing conversations. I think, and not to completely boast, because I'll say the same thing about the BIA conference. It is incredibly evident that our general manager just stands out from the bunch. The other ones are super great; they're awesome, but we stand out just in our leadership and where water is guided or being guided in the region and the state, because we are at the forefront of those conversations. So great job, and. Ditto for the BIA conference, got there right on time for the panel, which is what was of interest to me. Got some really cool goodies. And I'm not, if you know me, I'm not a conference goodie person. I tend not to, but there were some really cool things there. And that's it. That's my update. Like I said, congratulations to my colleagues. I'm really happy things turned out this way.
Okay, Director Rizzi.
Okay. Alrighty. Starting the same, congratulations to Director Denstedt and Mike for not worrying about an election. It can be very stressful. So, and good luck to you, Gracie. And then we attended the Aqua Region 9. It was, it's always good to see people's interest in these, not only us attending, but the interest is growing and the conversations we're having, it's always amazing. And as Gracie said, Greg, does a great job every time. So, and Sarah did good. So, thank you all. And then we attended CASA, which is, you can say CASA or CASA, but it was,
CASA.
okay, okay. That was a really good conference this time. You know, I'm partial because I'm one of the board of directors, but still, I'm like, it was held in Napa. The highlight of it was Napa. We took a tour to Napa Sanitation District, and the technology they're using. It's of the work that's going on. I think that was really interesting for me. And I was, you know, we were able to ask a lot of questions of what's going on. I think the resource recovery and energy regeneration was really interesting, and how they're using, you know, recycled water at, you know, golf courses, vineyards, and all that, and the waste they're, sending it to farms and everything. So I think that was my highlight of that conference. But there were some of the panels were very interesting, and as we always say, that their state and federal legislative updates are, you know, I'm like very informative, knowing what's going on from, you know, from the wastewater level at the state and at the federal level. So that is, you know, my favorite conference. I know I'm partial to it, but and the best part was it was Dr. Denstead and Dr. Roten and I got to travel, and we got to spend. Yeah, it was literally like a girls' trip. It was team building. It was interesting. I learned how to bowl, so yes,
that's right.
Yes, so yes, I had, you know, I had only bowled once in my life, so it was very interesting. So,
now you're on a roll.
yes, right. So,
And that was definitely the interesting part.
so, but it was a great conference. So I think, and then BIA. Great. And as I said, when we were talking about it, Jennifer Pierce was, when we were talking this morning about regulations and what's going on, I think she was very vocal. She's very, you know, I'm like, it was very interesting. We had not, I'm like, always, Greg always mentioned it, but it was very nice to hear from her of what's going on and how it's impacting our ratepayers. I hadn't thought of it's impacting our ratepayers in, you know, in such a direct way. So it was very good. And Greg, you know, that panel was, you know, moderation and all that was very good. So that's about it for me.
Okay. Director Denstead.
Can I just say ditto on all the conferences?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had a very good conference, but I will tell you, in all the years that I've gone to CASA too, this was a record-breaking attendance at CASA, not CASA, CASA, and it was, I think, 424, I think, was the attendance level. So it was a hugely attended conference. I think people are getting really interested in the technology and the different processes. And yes, to Director Rizvi's point, the tour of Napasan was interesting. I took some pictures. I would love to share those at some point because they're obviously with me on my phone. But some of the technologies that they had and the 5 bucket of gallon of sand that they took out after 20 years, you know, it just kind of, yeah, that was really interesting to me. So, but yes, thank you. And I appreciate traveling with my colleagues and having such a wonderful time. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I have a few things to report, kind of ditto on most of it. The CASA conference was really good, and could have been the location that had something to do with the attendance, but in any case, it just was from start to finish a really good experience, and it was definitely a team/friendship building without any Brown Act violations. We were very cognizant of that. It's funny because I never know quite how to give these reports without, frankly boring people. So I'm not going to go through all the things I highlighted, but I did really enjoy I enjoyed bowling. Hadn't done it in years. That was super fun. The keynote speaker was A New Vision for Water, and it's Dr. Ajami. I think I'm saying that correctly. And she just had a couple of quips and quotes that stuck out to me during her presentation. And she did a very broad presentation. It was not just on wastewater. It was water in general. It included kind of all of it. And one thing that she said that I thought was a great visual illustration, she said, the bones are our skeleton, and we all have, and I didn't get the number, but I want to say it's 200 and something bones, all of us. 216? 17? Okay. And so we all have the same amount of bones, but we all have all kinds of differences. And so she was, I think, using that in the work that she's been doing on the Aspen National Water Strategy Initiative. It's a nonpartisan, many backgrounds. There's 70 leaders at the table. Out of that came 6 pillars, which I will not go into. Thank goodness, right? I was thinking there was another thing that she had said that just really stuck with me, but I enjoyed the way she presented, and she was very understandable. Her remarks were very organized, and I guess relatable too. She was very relatable. So good choice on the keynote. I did enjoy the tour of Napa San. So I was going to ask you, Director Rizvian Denstadt, so that big egg thing, was that their digester? Mm-hmm. And that's the one that after 20 years, only 5 buckets of stuff came out when they went in to clean it. So they're very proud of this. It's a very unique digester. I think, was it from, maybe from Germany? Yeah, I was thinking that. That really stuck out to me. And then also that they, and correct me again if I'm wrong, because you're the expert on this, and I'm just like wide-eyed when I hear all these things. They take their biosolids and they spread them on farms in the area. And so that brings up, different questions and for different people, but something to think about. So, and anyway, and I loved, it reminded me a little bit of RCRA, not in its size or anything like that, but in the pride of the person who was giving the tour, that they're very proud of what they do and what they've accomplished. And so I was really glad to be able to go on that. So that was CASA. I also attended the BIA, and you're right about the tchotchkes. So apparently I now collect those stress ball things that are in all different shapes. And one table had like 4 or 5 different ones. I'm like, oh, can I have this one and this one? So I came home with a few of those. But the meat of the event was very good. Great speakers. Bill Hazenkamp was also there. I seem to be hearing him a lot, of course, because Colorado River's in the news. And yes, our general manager is a rock star at all of these events. It's just really, it's inspiring and it's exciting, and it's nice to have that pride as a board member to know that how well received you are and what you share is. It's really awesome. So, and one other thing I got to go to that I wanted to touch on, and it's the first time I've been able to attend, but Supervisor Karen Spiegel had her Senior Legacy Awards. This was the first year, and it was a wonderful luncheon. It was apparently sold out. And she chooses I was just trying to see how many awards there were. I think it was 7 from her cities within her District 2. So there was Corona, Eastvale, Canyon Lake, Norco, Jurupa Valley, Lake Elsinore, and one from the county of Riverside. And I walked away, I even had to put it on Facebook because I said, there's so much stuff that flies at us every day out in the world with political goings on, things that go on in our lives that sometimes are very heavy and challenging. And to see these folks and hear what they do, and then they're honored for, it was all good. And it's like, there are people doing great things. And one gentleman, when he received his award, he goes, well, I'm only 99. He's 99 years old. And they said he drove himself to the interview because they did little videos of each of them. So it was just very uplifting, and I hope to never miss it again. I feel like it sometimes conflicts with something, but hopefully that won't happen next time. And on that note about Supervisor Spiegel, she was not able to be there because she had hip replacement surgery like 10 days or something before that. So she's doing well from what I understand. But yeah, so I think that those were my main things that I wanted to share. It's hard when we skip a meeting. There's lots
So
of
much going
things that pile up like that, good things. But just wanted to share that. And if there are no other director comments, did you have one?
I left out a couple.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
Let's hear that.
I did also go to the Aqua Region 9 and the BIA Water Conference, and
Oh, yeah.
everything everybody said is true. They were both great. I also went to, now it's CREDA, the old NIOP. CREDA is the
The realtor.
Commercial Real Estate Development Association now. They did an elected officials recognition event, which I attended. The most significant piece, Gracie was there as well. The most significant thing coming out of that is they do a drawing at the end of the meeting, and if your name is drawn, you get some amount of money to donate to a charity of your choice. They called me for a $1,250 contribution.
Nice.
And that went to one of the local nonprofits that I sit on the board of. There are several, I had to pick one. So I picked the poorest and most needy.
Aw.
And I will be representing us tomorrow evening at Harupa Community Services District's 70th anniversary party.
And Fozzie will be there too.
Ah, good.
Yeah.
So Fauzi and I will represent.
And unfortunately, I will not be there because I will be down at Urban Water in San Diego. So, okay, any requests for future agenda items? I don't see any. Director Denstedt, I got your director comments, right? Oh, yeah, you said
and
ditto, I forgot. Okay.
Director Dinstedt lost connection 2 minutes ago. She's trying to log back in,
Okay.
and we're assisting.
Okay, do we need to wait?
We do not.
for that? Okay. Okay, no requests for future agenda items, so we will move into closed session. And Mr. Ballinger, would you take us into closed session, please?
Yes, the board will be meeting in closed session to discuss the 2 items that are listed on the agenda, and I'll note that there is also one open session item that it is anticipated to have action after the closed session.
Okay. Thank you. This is my clock, and I think it matches
Okay,
now.
we're good to go.
Okay, we are coming back into open session at 12:55, and before we have a report out, let's take a roll call, please.
And you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Director Gardner.
I am here.
Director Torres. Here. Director Dinstedt. Director Dinstedt.
She's there.
I see her
Is she
there. I need her to
frozen?
vocally tell me that she's here. Director Dinstedt.
Is she frozen?
She is not. She's muted. Director Dinstedt, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself, please, and answer to roll call? Star 6 if you're on the phone. Director Rizvi.
I'm here.
President Roten.
I also am here.
Thank you. President Roten, you do have a quorum, and we'll notate that we did hear Director Dinstedt, but cannot hear her at this point. She is on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, would you like to report out from closed session, please?
Yes, thank you.
This would be item 12A. right?
Yes, in closed session, the board discussed providing the general manager a 7.5% merit salary increase based on his very positive performance evaluation. That salary increase would be retroactive to the first day of the last pay period in June, and also providing the general manager a bonus of 17.4% of his new salary. Is there a motion?
I'll second.
You pick.
I have a motion by Director Gardner and a second by President Roten.
Okay, may we have the vote, please?
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Dinstedt.
Aye.
Thank you, and I'll take that as your attendance. Director Rizvi.
Thank you.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay. If we move, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Neufeld. If we move to item 13, there's 2 information items. And my pages are stuck together. Our next meeting is not Wednesday, September 2nd. So let's see, what's that, the 16th? Okay, and next meeting is September 16th, right here at 9:30 a.m. And with that, we are adjourned at 12:58.
Thank you very much.